Hello, Bobcats. I'm Haley Tucker. I hope you're having a awesome Thursday, and we have a fantastic show for you today.
And I'm Emma Kate Noggle. We're back this week to see what's behind the Bobcats. Enjoy!
Gather around.
This is GC360.
No. This is a new segment. This is...
Behind the Bobcats!
Aid Society to discuss the United States' current handling of foreign affairs. Producer Josh Galaif led the interview.
Thanks, anchors. Today I'm joined with a representative from Mutual Aid Society, Charlie Reynolds. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thank you for having me, Josh.
We're here to talk about a lot of important topics, namely the U.S.'s involvement in foreign affairs, so let's get right into it. You and members of Mutual Aid are committed socialists, but there's a lot of discourse around the definition of socialism. Is there a definition you guys resonate with most?
Absolutely. I would say kind of the working definition that we use kind of to guide what we do as an organization is the means of production in the hands of the working class. We see the world as it's currently organized as being run by an elite few, the capitalist class that own the means of production, extract value from the labor of workers, and also control property via private property. So kind of we believe in a collective restructuring of society and of the economy in which workers will own the fruits of their labor and the means of their own production.
Sounds fantastic. And if this conflict were to be led or contributed to by socialist politicians, how would you see this impacting the conflict and its repercussions?
Well, I would see, I think we wouldn't get to this point, you know, with a socialist in power. I think as socialists we have a commitment against war and imperialism specifically, you know, regime change in other countries at the behest of powerful private corporate interests. It's what we're seeing right now. So I think, you know, a socialist would recognize this conflict for what it truly is, which is imperialist, capitalist aggression meant to further restructure the world order in favor of the U.S. Trump regime, and it wouldn't get to this point.
Very well spoken. As an organization, you guys define yourselves as anti-tyranny. Does this current war in Iran go against your beliefs as an active member in our American democracy?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Congress didn't vote for this war. You know, we didn't even go through the most scant processes that we have in our legislative process and in our executive process and to launch this war. We did not vote for this war. We did not consent to this war and to this intervention for our tax dollars, over $1 billion of which are being spent every day on this intervention, to be put forth towards bombing kids in schools and destabilizing an entire country. Yeah.
A lot of Americans, including the current administration, would argue that Iran did pose a threat to America and that their current regime is an example of tyranny that should not exist. Does your organization agree with this sentiment?
We wholly reject the notion that Iran is a threat to us. Of course, we recognize the repressive nature of its government and of its theocracy, and we do not condone that, obviously, but I think honestly, that is sort of besides the point of why we are intervening here. I don't think there are altruistic intentions behind this, and I think we've seen that in the rhetoric and in how this is all sort of played out so far. Another reminder that would be, I think, useful as well is that Iran has not attacked us at all. You know, we struck first, we killed their leader. And anybody, I think, with a history, with an understanding of the history of U.S. involvement in that region, and specifically in Iran, will kind of, I think, tell you that what is currently present there has been created under conditions imposed by the United States and its allies.
intersectionality is another one of your core principles in mutual aid. Have you all seen any signs of discrimination toward a specific group that has come from the war in Iran?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've seen a massive uptick in Islamophobia and anti-Muslim sentiment, and a lot of that is coming from the top down, coming from our most senior leaders and officials in the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth has repeatedly demonized Islam as a religion in order to manufacture consent for this war against a Muslim-majority country. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, called the religion misguided, again, as another positioning of they're not like us, or we don't have anything that we can empathize with in them. So I would say, we've seen a lot of that since this conflict started.
Yeah. And in a small town like Milledgeville, Georgia, how would your organization plan to combat this?
I think we would, meet the demand where there is one. We haven't been approached or, personally seen any incidents or any sort of uptick in this kind of sentiment on campus, at least not openly, of course. But what we would want to do and what we feel a responsibility to do, I think, would be to meet these marginalized people where they are, meet these Muslims and other people disaffected and detrimented by this bigotry that we see. We would want to meet them where they are and hear those concerns and sort of plan out how we would respond to it from there. We want to kind of prioritize those voices, I think, as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. An open and honest press can be the strongest defense against tyranny. How do you believe that American journalism has been presenting the news in regard to the conflict in Iran? More specifically, do you think they are accurately representing everything that is happening in the region?
I'll say categorically no. Categorically no. We're kind of seeing the same playbook used in conflicts from the end of World War II to now that America has undertaken, and that is a model of manufacturing consent. We're seeing sources from liberal, conservative, whatever, these corporate media sources funded by the capitalist class repeatedly glorify this war, first of all, and second of all, underreport its atrocities. When we bombed an entire school full of girls on the first day of the conflict, killing over 100 of them, it was barely even reported. The next day, it was on page 11 of the New York Times. I mean, we see kind of this sort of current of American media as antithetical to the interests of ordinary people as well. Another thing I would also say is that they don't tell you or don't represent the history of our involvement in the region, which is a large part of what has led us to today. For instance, we installed a dictator, the Shah, in Iran in 1953, overthrowing their democratically elected prime minister because he wanted to nationalize the country's oil supply and prevent it from being extracted by Western capitalist powers. And so for that crime, we ousted him in a coup backed by the CIA and installed a dictator that reigned until 1979, which is the Iranian Revolution. I mean, that is why we see people in Iran say death to America. As jarring as it may be for us as citizens of this country to hear, for them, we have had so much detrimental involvement in that region. We have destabilized their country. We have stripped them of their sovereignty so much that this is kind of another chapter in that history. And in order to go fully into that, there's going to have to be some implications, some wider implications about how U.S. society is structured. And of course, a media outlet funded by millionaires and billionaires is not going to want to steer its readers in that direction.
Absolutely. As an organization, what would you guys like to see from student media and from our school as a whole to combat this spreading of misinformation?
I would say a wider contextualization and a wider analysis of the factors and of the sort of events that have preceded this is what I would say. Because in order to fully understand this conflict, we cannot separate it from the conditions under which it emerged. And that is a century's worth almost of U.S. involvement in the Middle East and in Iran as well.
How does your organization believe American journalists could do better with combating tyranny right here on American soil?
I would definitely say, you know, I would like to see more confrontation. You know, I would, especially in sort of corporate media interviews or panel discussions, you often see, you know, maybe the most extreme viewpoint presented alongside something that is actually, you know, true. For instance, you know, take like a panel between somebody who is, you know, a complete denier of climate change versus somebody who's a climate change scientist. Of course, the media has an interest in portraying both sides, but to sort of put those on equal footing would be, you know, ludicrous, right? So I would want to see, and I think, you know, we would want to see more pushback against rhetoric that is either untrue, you know, discriminatory, and yeah, I think we need to be more vigilant.
Absolutely. One last question. How would you recommend that other students stay updated with their information on this conflict?
I would recommend staying in touch with some independent media sources, especially in the region. For instance, Al Jazeera does some wonderful reporting on the conflict. You know, you will be shown definitely some things you're not in U.S. corporate media. And I would say to just continue kind of seeking out independent voices, and specifically the voices of those in Iran, the Iranian people, because we cannot see them as our enemy. And we must, I think, understand what their plight is in order to understand the full nature of this conflict.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Charlie. Is there anything that you would like to promote, anything upcoming that Mutual Aid is promoting that you would like to?
Sure, yeah. We're going to be tabling the rest of this week, raising money for the Black Women's Health Initiative. We're doing a blind book sale, yeah, we'll be around, and there'll be plenty of ways you can contribute. We also partner with the Allah Hadem Community Garden as well, and we have open volunteer days usually on Saturdays. And that's a great opportunity to kind of, you know, do a little bit of the work and get involved in the community, which is something that, you know, we think is really important.
Amazing. Make sure you go check out their table, Bobcats. Back to you.
We have the latest weather report right here on GC360. Let's take a look with anchor Ava Flores.
Good afternoon, Bobcats, and welcome to today's weather report. We're looking at a warmer week ahead of us, and hopefully it will stay this way as we head towards summer. Friday will have a high of 80 and a low of 49. It's going to be a sunny day, and the UV will get up to an 8, so put on some sunscreen and get outside and tan in between classes. Saturday will be sunny and warm up even more with a high of 86 and a low of 52. You'll catch me swimming in my local pool. Sunday will keep up the sunny weather with a high of 86 and a low of 56. I'm going to spend that day convincing my friends to play some pickleball with me at the new courts on West Campus. Monday will cool down slightly with a high of 84 and a low of 59. And we'll have a break from the sun as it will be partly cloudy. Tuesday will still be partly cloudy with a high of 88 and a low of 61. I'm already mentally preparing myself to break a sweat walking to my classes, and you should too. Wednesday will be even warmer with a high of 89 and a low of 63. Thankfully, it will still be partly cloudy, but still make sure you put on some sunscreen. Finally, Thursday will be partly cloudy with a high of 88 and a low of 64. It might be a good day to get iced coffee and relax on front campus. That's it for Weather Bobcats. I hope you have a great week and stay cool.
I'm Eric Griffiths. I am the interim chair of the Department of Theater and Dance. Our general mission, of course, is teaching theater artists, actors, designers, technicians. Of course, students will specialize in certain areas, but they will know if an actor leaves here and that is their goal is to perform, they will also know how to hang a light. They will know how to sew a button on a costume. They have these other skills. So we offer kind of a mix of the soft skills and the hard skills for doing the work. Our goal is to create a well-rounded theater artist that knows a little bit about everything that goes into producing theater.
Welcome back to GC360. We also brought in the Vice Chairman of College Republicans to discuss similar foreign affair issues. Assignment News Editor Madelyn Agostini posed her the questions.
Thanks, guys. I'm Madelyn Agostini, and today I'm joined with Harrison Edwards, the Vice Chairman of the College Republicans here at George College. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, Harrison.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, we're really looking forward to it. So to start off this conversation, I'd like to kind of talk about you guys as a club and where you stand with President Trump. So previously at a civility and conversation forum, you guys mentioned that you do still support President Trump and his actions. So yesterday, April 7th at 8 a.m., the president put out a statement on Truth Social saying that, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight, threatening Iran, and if they were unable to reach a deal by last night, his deadline that he had set. So my question for you is, how do you respond to this kind of rhetoric as a supporter of President Trump, and how do you respond to the outcome of this previous situation?
Thank you for the question, Madelyn. Hey, look, we as a club, we support Donald Trump. There are times that we can disagree with President Trump, and the rhetoric that he used, though me personally, I do not agree with it. I think more so it was along the lines of getting Iran to the bargaining table in order to try to reach a deal. So American lives are not at stake, in order that we're not risking wiping out an entire civilization. I believe as of around 6:30 last night, a ceasefire has been reached. It's going to go about a 2-week plan. As with any foreign conflict, these situations are very fluid, and so we're looking forward to seeing, how this ceasefire comes out, obviously. But as you know, it can be very fluid. But at the end of the day, we as a club, though we support President Trump, we don't necessarily have to agree with the way he always says things or all of his actions as a club.
That was wonderfully said. Thank you. And I feel like that's a really excellent point. You can support someone while still not agreeing with 100% of everything they go by. So thank you for sharing that. Yes. I appreciate it. My next question is kind of on the impact that the war in Iran has brought. So gas prices have now averaged around $3.60 a gallon. And it's expected to continue to go up. So as a representative of the Republican Party, how do you guys think that President Trump should handle this situation and keep his promise of trying to keep lower gas prices?
Hey, look, gas prices impact everybody from their day-to-day lives. It impacts me, it impacts you. We're college students. We're obviously commuting at times to different places, whether it be Milledgeville or Georgia as a whole. And so, this is something that Americans across any political affiliation are feeling. And at the end of the day, it's in Georgia specifically, our state legislature just adjourned sine die, which is Latin for without a day, meaning that we are done for the year. We only meet for 40 days a year. And during that time, that 40-day time span, Georgia Republicans took action and suspended our state gas tax for, I believe, 60 days in House Bill 1199. So this comes back to, state governments obviously have more tools to address this crisis than the federal government does. We can act quicker, more swiftly, and as you know, without that, gas prices would actually be around 30 cents higher than they are now. So I think if we're looking at around $3.70, without the gas tax suspension, we're looking at over $4 a gallon. So, Georgia Republicans, they saw a need and they took action, bold action, during their legislative session. So that is, I believe, is where we stand on the gas prices. That's not really a national thing per se. Though the oil is traded on a national level, it really comes down to states and what they can do immediately to address what we call the affordability crisis.
Awesome. Again, wonderfully said. Thank you. And so moving on from that, like you said, the Republicans have been taking action against gas prices. And especially within this conflict in Iran, many Republicans are supporting a, quote, maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian forces. So for the viewers at home, would you be able to explain why you think these strict economic policies are the most effective tool to use in this specific conflict?
Sure. So whenever you use such a thing as this, you're restricting Iran's capability to build up a military and a nuclear weapon system, which at the end of the day is what this conflict is about. Iran, under no circumstance, needs to have a nuclear weapon. They have been the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism for over 40 years. So I believe that if we put the pressure on them where it hurts the most in terms of sanctions and things like that, you're cutting off their ability to produce these weapons and build up their military, when reality in Iran, they are on the verge of a regime change there. We have been for about a month now. There's the final dominoes need to fall, and at the end of the day, the Iranian people want this to happen. So it all comes down to, we're going to cut off their ability to keep oppressing their people as they've been doing for the last 40 years, and supplying, you know, they've been sponsoring other states or other countries, you know, Russia, you know, our foreign enemies, they're helping. So why wouldn't we want to cut off their ability to help our foreign enemies, if that makes sense? If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. That's an excellent point. Thank you. And so moving on, my next question for you. Sovereignty is one of the core beliefs of the college Republicans, and sovereignty is the right for a nation to govern oneself. So how do you balance your beliefs of sovereignty with the U.S. interference forcing these changes in the Iranian regime, as well as the recent examples such as the capture of the Venezuelan president?
Right, so we believe in sovereignty, but we also believe that with sovereignty comes responsibility. And so we believe in peace through strength. And, you know, as in Venezuela, we came in, he was actually wanted, I believe it was in New York, on different charges. And we went in there without any military casualties and took their president. I mean, he was wanted in the United States for felony drug charges in New York. So like we said, with sovereignty comes responsibility. And when you're not responsible with it, I think someone has to be the adult in the room and say, look, you're not acting responsible. We gave you this trust. It's like with a parent and their child, you know, you give a child a certain amount of freedom. When they abuse that freedom, you have to be the parent and say, you know, maybe we should reevaluate this, you know, maybe we should try something different, per se. And I believe that's what this is all about.
So foreign policy is usually a legacy issue. How do you recommend college students try and pay attention to this conflict in Iran and U.S. politics in general?
So I think, you know, a lot of college students don't pay attention to politics unless something like this happens. You should see the statistics for the amount of college students, and I've talked to professors here, they don't know who our sitting U.S. senators are in Georgia. And so it's a big problem, but it takes, and I hate to say this, it takes something violent to happen for college students to start paying attention. You look historically, Vietnam was a very active time for our college campuses, and I would argue that was a pretty nasty time on our college campuses. And so for college students, I think it's important that they look at this issue, but also understand that it goes a little deeper than what the mainstream media says. There's a lot more historical background that I won't get into about Iran that is really influencing what's going on today. I've talked to someone in my personal life who knows someone whose father was kidnapped and held as a war hostage during the original Iranian conflict back in the 70s. And so for him, you know, he's a little older than I am, but this is very personal for him. And so I think it scopes beyond the college students is paying attention. I think, you know, it should be that we pay attention all the time and not just when violent things happen or when someone dies, and as we're seeing over there. Like, we should be paying attention all the time. And like I said in the previous answer, you know, with sovereignty, there's a responsibility. And when that responsibility is abused or neglected, you have to come back and be, I'm going to use the quote, adult in the room, and per se. But that's the gist of that answer.
Absolutely. And so like you mentioned, college students do not often pay attention to politics or the news in general. So my question for you is, where do you find your news? Where do, you know, most college Republicans find their news? And how would you recommend students to pay more attention to politics?
Yeah, so a lot of college students, myself included, I don't really pay attention to what's known as the legacy media, CNN, Fox News, any of those, because at the end of the day, they have a strict bias. They are appealing to a certain group of people that they want to keep riled up and roused up for the sake of their viewers. And so they're doing very little to actually get the news out there. So me personally, I believe the way that I do it is, I look on Twitter. I'm being involved in politics, news just kind of flows naturally through the circles that I'm in without me having to go and look. But if I want to know something more, I'll ask a professor or go back and look, read online. But I think a lot of college students, to answer your question, don't use legacy media as their source for outlets. A lot of like TikTok, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, all of those apps are being used now in place of legacy media. And I think for the most part, it can be positive for our generation because a lot of times you're not seeing the news through a filtered lens. A lot of times when something's breaking, you can see, what the most recent thing is that just happened. Like, let's take yesterday's ceasefire for an example. Legacy media was probably 20 minutes late on reporting that. I got wind of it in another circle of mine that I'm a part of, and the first place I went was X, or Twitter as you might call it, and got the details from there faster than I could on legacy media. And I did check legacy media first, and it was not reported there. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to us outsourcing legacy media, because I think college students in particular want something a little deeper than what legacy media has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great answer. Thank you for that. And so my final question for you is, as the vice chairman of the College Republicans, do you guys have any events coming up or anything you want to say to our student body to encourage students not only to get involved in the College Republicans, but politics in general?
Sure. So next Monday at 5:00 p.m., we will be having a virtual meeting with State Representative Bethany Ballard. She's out of Warner Robins area. She represents part of Houston County and I think a slice of Peach County. Just about an hour south of us. She's our closest Republican state House representative. We have a state senator from Milledgeville that's a Republican, but I unfortunately could not get him in contact with him soon enough. But she's graciously offered to give us a post-session legislative recap, and that will be next Monday at 5:00 on Zoom. And to answer the second part of your question, I'm not even going to offer College Republicans as a place to start. I think, just getting involved in general, making sure you're registered to vote, asking the tough questions to your professors, because at the end of the day, we're in college and we have an unlimited source of knowledge in our professors, I believe. And so,
Absolutely.
if they want to come get involved with College Republicans, of course, see me or I think we're on Cork, find our leadership. Our meetings are pretty regular, but we're constantly putting out opportunities to get involved politically around the state.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Harrison. It was great talking to you today. And we will be right back with some more. Back to you, anchors.
Madelyn also had the chance to get into the community to see what they have to say about the impact of the war in Iran.
Gas prices have increased to a national average of $3.60 per gallon due to the conflict in Iran. I'm here in Milledgeville, Georgia, heading to the pumps, asking Milledgeville locals and students how they feel about the price increase. Milledgeville locals are feeling the pressure of these increases and are making smart moves to lower the impact.
And I mean, there's so much other things that I think it affects, like the food prices and, overall expenses, period.
Well, it's being retired. It's not like it was when we were working, but it does keep us coming to Kroger so that we get a little bit back from the groceries on gas. So,
it's impacting my, and not in a good way, in a bad way, you feel me? Because I drive like 60 miles for work, so like, I gotta keep continuously putting gas in the car, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, I think the gas fake now. They doing something to it, cause it going out, you feel me? It leaving out so fast, and you gotta keep on refilling it, you feel me?
Georgia college students are feeling the pressure on their commutes to campus.
As a commuter student, I pay a lot of gas. It was about $40 a tank, and now it's like $60, and I drive an hour to school there and back every day. So it's rough. I'm broke.
Well, for me, I am constantly going to Atlanta because I have an externship at CHOA. So I have to factor in the increase in price because I have no other option but to drive to Atlanta at least once or twice a week.
For new neighbors moving to Milledgeville, this price increase has a significant effect.
2 vehicles, so 2 vehicles. So that's 240, that's almost 500 miles each trip. So that's 5,000 miles. This is scaring me. Times $1 a gallon, right? As compared to what we just spent an extra, probably somewhere between, is my math? between $4,000 and $5,000 in gas over the last month.
This is Madelyn Agostini reporting for GC360.
That's all for Behind the Bobcats this week. Thank you for joining us today, and make sure you tune in next Thursday at 4 p.m. on NBC TV4 through the CableCast app. I'm Haley Tucker.
And I'm Emma Kate Noggle. If you want a professor, student, or staff highlighted on the show, fill out the form on our Instagram. That's at GC360 News on Instagram and YouTube. This is Behind the Bobcats, where your story takes the spotlight. See you next week.
Gather around, gather around.
This is GC360.
No. This is a new segment. This is
Behind the Bobcats.
Ha ha ha!